Craig Castelli, welcome to the Root Three Pointer podcast. Thanks for joining me today.
Scott, thanks for having me.
You, founder of Caber Hill Advisors, you work with, middle market advisory, healthcare, manufacturing, facility services, business services. You do a survey every year to private equity groups, middle market private equity, to just kind of get a pulse of the marketplace. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. Kind of the big revelation is the optimism is back. Is that fair to say?
I think that's very fair to say. Absolutely. We started doing this podcast because we see and hear certain things in the market, but have a somewhat limited purview and wanted to socialize with the buy side. Private equity firms are looking at hundreds, if not thousands of deals every year, making investments across a variety of industries. Their feedback's important, and it's important to our business owner clients who are trying to make decisions on if and when they make a move in any given year.
So what was the change in optimism? Like you had 82% respondents expect market strength to improve. I assume that's up significantly from the year prior.
So here's something interesting, and I can't quantify the change for you because I didn't pull up the prior year survey to compare the two. But everybody headed into 2025 full of optimism, us included. We thought it was going to be a great year, and our pipeline in the first quarter matched that. We had more top of funnel activity in Q1 of 25 than we had in any prior year since we've been tracking, data a certain way. And then Liberation Day happened, and tariffs just took the wind out of the sails of virtually all M&A activity, and basically nothing happened in the second quarter. So our response is, from what I recall, when we did the survey at the end of 2024, we're somewhat similar to what they looked like when we did the survey at the end of 2025. Just for context, these go out in October,
none of this had happened.
They get answered in November, and it was a strong bull case. If you ask people the same question in May of last year, that's really when the pendulum swung in the opposite direction.
That's a fair point. So let's talk about tariffs. Let's talk about some of the things that disrupted the market last year. Really, nothing's changed. Has it? Or is it like Jeff Korzanik is chief economist at Fifth Third. He actually, I'm sure he didn't make it up, but he calls it tariff fatigue, and he has it factored into his model. People are tired of being worried about tariffs. And so business is just moving forward.
I think that's a great way to put it. I like to say it's become background noise. We're no longer whiplashed by the next headline, the next threat, the next announcement. And to the point you just made, we all realize we have to go forward. Our businesses are generally doing okay. And the uncertainty is what killed us. It wasn't so much the actual impact of any tariff or perceived tariff as much as it was the uncertainty, because we saw as much fear from our clients who have zero tariff exposure whatsoever as we did our heavy industrial clients who may have some exposure to China who would directly be impacted by it. Deals got done on both sides there. Business owners have come to the realization that we're starting to understand the rules of the game again. But when we all thought the rules were going to change, it was really hard to play.
Yeah. One thing that I noticed in your survey that I thought was really interesting is that the optimism appears to be more about volume than valuations.
It's interesting that you bring that up. And yes, the general consensus is that valuations will hold steady. A few said they thought they saw valuations creeping up, but by and large, they thought they would see more deals get done, and valuations roughly consistent where they've been the last couple of years. I think unless we see a dramatic drop in interest rates, we're not likely to see major changes in valuations. We really peaked coming out of COVID. We've settled back down at a lower level, but still very, very high. If you look back across prior decades, valuations are still near peak levels. What's interesting though is while the expectation was that valuations would remain largely the same, one of the major concerns PE firms expressed about getting deals done this year is valuations getting too high. So
Huh.
I don't know exactly what to make out of that. If it's, on one hand, here's what we expect. On the other hand, here's where the curveball could come. But there's at least the thought in the back of their minds that valuation could creep back up.
Anything that I didn't ask you about in the survey that you thought was interesting that you wanted to bring up?
Yeah. So I think if we think about the forces that are driving activity, first of all, we asked, what we think will compel a strong market this year. The number one answer by far was dry powder. Dry powder is the cash that's sitting on the sidelines, waiting to be invested,
Still there?
needing to be invested. It's still there. We've been talking about dry powder for years. It's still there. Private equity firms are raising bigger and bigger funds, and there's pressure to put, that money to work. So we have, on the one hand, dry powder driving deals. On the other hand, the number one and number three answers given when we ask the question about concerns that could impact their individual, ability to get deals done in 2026. Number one was competition for deals. Number three was, what I just mentioned with valuations rising and the deals getting too expensive. So if I'm a business owner and I'm thinking about going to market, I see a lot of capital that is waiting to get put to work. And I see this potential feeding frenzy as different private equity investors are afraid of competing against each other and the deals getting more expensive as a result. That's probably where I want to be. That's probably when I say, if I'm reasonably close to selling my business anyway, this is the time where I want to test the waters.
I mean, from a business owner perspective, that's one of the most optimistic things I've heard for a business owner in at least a couple of years.
Yeah, it really is. And we are seeing it prove out on both sides of the equation with, optimism or maybe more just confidence coming back to the business owner community and the appetite for deals from the funds, the need to put money to work after a couple of less certain years.
Are you surprised at how resilient the middle market has been over the last few years? It was just kind of stagnant for a couple years with interest rates kind of impacting the market, and then the chaos of 2025. And I personally, I serve the middle market. I've been, scared for the middle market, but still strong. Like how?
The middle market is the real economy. This is the real American economy. And again, despite everything that happened or could have happened last year, our economy is pretty darn strong. And these businesses and the bets placed on these businesses reflect that.
Yeah, which is good.
It beats the alternative.
All right, it's time for the Route 3 pointer quiz. I'm focused on the Winter Olympics for you. Okay. Now, first question. This is rapid fire. Try to keep up. This is going to be exciting. The most exciting Winter Olympic sport. Go.
Oh, you're going to hit me with that. It is the freestyle skiing moguls.
I understand why you answered that way, but you're wrong. It's biathlon. It's a proven fact.
Biathlon is cool. It's not fun to watch.
Moguls are tough, man. I just look at those and I just wish I was an orthopedic surgeon. Speaking of skiing, you're a skier. You like to do dangerous things. You like to break things while you're doing it. Which ski race records the highest speeds?
Downhill.
I figured you just know that. Do you know like what the average, not average speed, but like what's a really fast speed for downhill?
They're typically this week at least topping out around 91, 92 miles an hour.
What's the
And
fastest
that's
you?
both men and women, by the way.
I know this is on your resume, but what's your fastest speed on skis?
I believe it's 91.
91? What's that feel like? You're gonna die?
It feels like you are really on the edge of completely losing control.
Yeah, I mean, when you see people wipe out going those speeds, like what wiping out at those speeds, like when you're going, like, do you just know that that's just catastrophic if you do?
I mean, we also what happened to Lindsey Vonn, right? Which is horrible. You just, I hold my breath, and you just feel like every time somebody gets up, they're a little bit lucky.
So speaking of ludicrous speeds in danger, if you can only do one, skeleton or luge, feet first or head first?
Let's go skeleton.
I thought that would be an answer. I thought so. Um, and have you skied any of these mountains that they're on?
Skied Cortina a couple years ago, which is they're doing Cortina and Bormio, and we did Cortina a couple years ago.
Nice. Nice. All right. Do you have any Olympic questions for me?
Ooh, why does Eileen Gu compete for China instead of the United States?
I know that she's got 20 million in endorsements. I'm wondering if that has something to do with it.
She says that there are already plenty of young girls who ski in the US and plenty of role models for them. And she wanted to reach a generation that is harder to reach and have a bigger impact.
Um, that's a good reason. I got to tell you, I'm impressed by these. I don't know if you listen to Shaun White on the opening ceremonies, but this guy is such a business person. Eileen Gu is running probably a $50 million business, probably higher, with her merch. There's some
While
ballers
excelling
in
at
this
Stanford,
game.
by the way.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty cool. Some of the listening to Shaun White, who is just this teenager when we first met him, and like every country that came out, he's like, yeah, I skied here. I was there like 2 weeks ago. I was launching this brand. I was working with these athletes, and from the Flying Tomato, Big Air to multinational corporation. It's pretty
I mean,
impressive.
it can go both ways with so many of these people who find such success at a young age, and there's obvious stereotypes with skateboarders and snowboarders. And I mean, he's just impressive through and through. He could do it in both summer and winter Olympics, and now he's building a brand that will create generational wealth.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Well, thanks for joining me on the 3 pointers. Thanks for the information in the survey. And they can get that at your website, Caber Hill.
Free download at our website for a limited time only.
Done. All right. Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, Scott.